Hello, welcome to No Apologies on Beck, where we are unafraid to speak the truth. I am your host, Rick Becker, our co-host, Lori Hintz.
Hi there.
We are here tonight. We've got, I think, what's going to be a very interesting show. We're talking about a possible 51st state.
Possibly.
You're going to do an off the cuff and try and force me into a corner and cry?
We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. I've got a couple of things I just want to throw at you and just get your impressions on them.
Right.
So
It's a segment we call Off the Cuff, and I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, we're just a little bit discombobulated tonight. So there might be a few things off the cuff tonight. So as you know, though, we fly with it. We're okay with it because we know that you're okay with it. But first off tonight, guns.
Okay.
Guns, guns, guns!
Yes, we love talking about this, except in this situation, this is not a really good bill.
I would rather that we were not talking about guns, because if we weren't talking about guns, that means everything would be copacetic, and it's not.
And it's really, really not. So what we're discussing tonight, again, is the federal gun bill that is being put forward by Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. And we touched on it last night, and it's terrifying, all of the things that are in this. This is H.R. 127. And
the Sabika Chic Firearm Licensing and Registration
Have you figured
Act.
out why they're calling it that? Is there some reason behind that?
You know, there is. I read it and I forgot about it.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
But it's named after someone who has a tragic story. So
of course. Yeah. Well, that's the typical emotional-based thing with guns.
It is.
So there you have it. Okay, so one more time, the banning of millions of firearms didn't reduce gun problems, and here we go. We're going to just try to ban guns.
So, folks, we covered some of this last night, and there's so much to cover in this bill. Remember, it's not a law. It hasn't been voted on, but this is a bill that's actually in Congress now, H.R. 127. We don't want to go over everything we went over last night, but there are a couple of points that we want to make. Number one is everyone will be required to have a license from the Attorney General to own a gun. Even the guns you own now, you have 3 months to get a license. You also need to undergo psychological evaluations and
pretty specific psychological evaluations
extensive.
By somebody who is, licensed and approved, and it's really onerous.
And there's a training course, 24 hours of training.
Wow.
There is also additional things, especially if you want to have something that looks scary, that they call military style, which is ridiculous. Back in '94, they called it an assault weapon ban. Here they're talking military style ban.
Right.
But if it looks scary, then there are additional things. You have to have firearm insurance. And you have to pay an $800 fee every year. It goes on and on. But
that's terrible. All right,
let's hit that next graphic. So we've got the fee right there, $800. Can you imagine? This is a 1-year period. Wow. So that fee recurs over and over.
Wow. The Attorney General shall issue to any person who has applied for a license pursuant to subsection C and has paid to the Attorney General the fee specified in paragraph 2 of this subsection a policy that insures the person against liability for losses and damages resulting from the use of any firearm by the person during the 1-year period that begins with the date the policy is issued. So you've got insurance and you've got a fee specified in the paragraph is $800. Now, is that per firearm?
No, but that's to be licensed.
That's to be
it's
licensed.
Not per firearm.
All right.
But they've got a situation where they have for instance, you have to be recertified every year for 5 years, and then after that it can be every 3 years.
Yikes.
But I mean, what they're doing basically to afford insurance, to go through the whole certification process, to pay for training, to pay for the $800 fee. You know, there's going to be 2 categories of people in the United States that own guns. Mm-hmm. Criminals and the wealthy.
Correct. That's
It's unbelievable.
And those specifically who are given, I would say celebrities will probably have no problem getting what they want, but I would suspect that there is some real specific use of the law here to keep those deplorable people from getting firearms.
Right.
I mean,
well,
that's
we talked last
thing.
night, the risk with these psychological evaluations and all of their subjectivity, and especially if you want a military style, which is a lot of normal stuff like an AR-15. They are going to go out and also do psych evals on all your family members, and then they're going to conduct interviews on your ex-spouse and on your stepkids.
And you have to have two
And-
other additional people on there as well who have to vouch for you, essentially.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
It's
now, last
frightening.
night we left off before we started talking about some of the penalties.
Right.
Now, again, this is a penalty, for instance, for doing exactly what you do now, which is you've got a gun at home. If you don't get that license within 3 months, you suffer significant penalties. Bring the graphic up. If you don't have that license, you're looking at up to a $150,000
Wow.
fine, $75,000 to $100,000. I mean, to $150,000. It's absolutely crazy.
Now, if you notice at the top, I'm just going to point this out to you too. It shall be unlawful for a person to possess a firearm or ammunition.
Yes, that's a good point, Lori.
Not even just the firearm, but add the, if you just have ammo, that is just unbelievable to me. Whoever knowingly violates section 992AA shall be fined not less than $75,000 and not more than $150,000, imprisoned not less than 15 years and not more than 25 years, or both.
So can you imagine?
Who picked this?
Who can you imagine that we, U.S. citizens, for doing nothing more than we're doing now, except not registering and with the federal government and getting licensed by the U.S. Attorney General, can suffer 25 years in prison.
Mind you, if you don't remember to do that, if you don't do that, so what happens if, I don't know, I'm trying to imagine a scenario where this is going to actually be 25 years in prison?
Right. Or let's say that you are, Mr. Good, obedient citizen, and you get your license, and you let someone use a gun, you use your gun.
Right.
And it turns out that they weren't licensed.
Right.
You're still looking at 10 to 15 years in jail.
It's mind-blowing. I just can't imagine that they think that this is okay. And are there going to be literally the lockstep Democrats going for this?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
They
they
will.
absolutely think that they're saving people and helping people and protecting them in some way?
I don't know that they are thinking about it. They just know, just like it's.
Is it a visceral thing
it's-
and they don't
yes,
really, they don't even
exactly.
go into
Orange man bad, gun bad.
gun bad?
That's
it. Got it.
I mean, they've even got up to a 15-year penalty if you loan or let your kid who's under 18 use a gun. Can you imagine?
What if you have a gun, for instance, that doesn't have a serial number on it? What happens then? What if you have a stash of guns that you have protected? You've never. I mean,
I think you have to turn it in because it's one of the requirements is it must have a serial number, and so you would be
violating law.
in violation of the law, and you'd be looking at prison time.
And in addition to that, I'm trying to envision all the things that could possibly go wrong with publishing. They said that they were going to publish all of the names for the public to know of people who possess these firearms.
Right. So everyone in government especially, but even the public will know if you have guns and where you store them,
And where you store them.
because that's a requirement.
It's craziness. So can we chuck this for a second and talk a little bit about fast cash? It's
talk
just
about
making my
fast
blood
cash.
pressure rise.
Tomorrow
I'm sorry,
night.
okay?
Tomorrow night. Fast cash! Fast cash!
I'm so sorry. I just can't
Wow.
do guns anymore. It's making me get tense in the shoulders here. This should make you very, very happy, and this is for one day only tomorrow. This is Beck News' Fast Cash, and it is tomorrow. Now, as you can see, you can submit a message during our show. You can do it during any of the Beck shows tomorrow, but it's really important that you do it only tomorrow. And you can text, call, message us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, lots of opportunities for you to do that. I understand this is cash. I mean, like legitimate cash. So I'm very excited about that.
After the government takes their share, you're going to have $650 of cash. So Don't jump up and down too much.
But we want to make sure everybody knows about it because it, again, is only tomorrow. So be sure that you are ready. And when you see that up on the screen, be writing down furiously the ways that you can enter so you can enter.
And like I've said, the last couple of nights, there's only like 9 people that watch the show. So your odds
Good
are
chance.
so good of winning.
Okay, when we come back, we are going to talk about the possibility of a 51st state. Join us.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Heroes and Icons is now Cozy TV. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Pub 21, your one stop for fun, drinks, and food. Our spacious facility provides COVID-safe fun for you and all your friends. With nightly bingo and specials, you can be sure there's something to do for everyone. If you're staying in for the night, we've got you covered just across the way with Pub 21 Liquor. We have a wide variety of options, from wine to whiskey and everything in between. Stop in today at 1014 South 12th Street in Bismarck to see what all the buzz is about. You won't be disappointed.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. We are now going to talk about Washington, D.C.
Possibly becoming the 51st state. There is a plan. Well, first of all, let me just say that now that they are emboldened, the left feels that they need to do some things. We're expecting down the line for them to pack the court. They're going to add people possibly from Puerto Rico. They possibly want to make that a state also. They want to make Washington, D.C. a state so that, generally speaking, they can just add to their people in the Senate and just, take a majority and add a little bit that way. Everyone knows that Washington, D.C. is kind of a cesspool, and it is very much Democratic run. I can tell you a little story about Washington, D.C. too. When I was in August and I was at the president's nomination acceptance speech, we were told that we were supposed to leave the event, and you will remember that is the night that Rand Paul got assaulted and got squished in by all of the people. And we were told that there was no protection for us as we were leaving. And the reason for that is Muriel Bowser. Muriel Bowser is the DC mayor. Now, DC doesn't have, obviously, the governor like another state would have. They have a mayor, and Muriel Bowser decided that she was going to not allow the DC police to escort people out of there, which is why there was a lot of screaming, yelling, and assault, and it was a bad situation. So this lady has a really delightful history. So with Washington, DC, the biggest issue is that the more than 700,000 residents of the district do not have necessarily taxation with representation. So they get taxed, but they don't have anybody representing them. And their situation in the House is really, really odd, Rick. It's an odd thing because they have this woman named Eleanor Holmes Norton, who is a Democrat delegate. She represents DC in the District of Columbia. And she is the one who actually started the ball rolling on this. She started and introduced the bill with more than 200 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives. And then it was brought by Tom Carper, who is Delaware's senator, one of Delaware's senators, who introduced statehood legislation then again a few weeks ago now too. Now this Eleanor Holmes Norton has served in this position since 1991. And the interesting thing about Washington, D.C., not a lot of people realize this, but it sends what's called a non-voting delegate to the House of Representatives. And the position allows her to serve on committees. She's allowed to speak on the House floor. She can sponsor legislation, but she's not able to vote. So people who are in DC and living in the district, and by the way, if you have 700,000 people in North Dakota, we have 760,000 people. So it's not really a population issue as much as people are also saying against it that it is a small location. So a lot of people are suggesting, well, why don't you just add DC to Maryland or Virginia and just, shove it there. That way you can get your representation. So that is another one of the possible.
What I don't understand, Lori, and not to
No
step
problem.
in your path here, but so DC's in the Constitution.
Right.
And it's there because it's supposed to be a neutral ground,
Correct.
separate from any other state.
Exactly.
So how can you make it a state without amending the Constitution?
You
That's
cannot.
what I don't understand.
You cannot without amending the Constitution. And that is what the Republicans are saying with regard to this bill, is they're like, the only way you can do it is if you amend the Constitution and maybe throw out the 23rd Amendment. So this is an interesting thing because DC is unusual, and the framers knew exactly what they were doing when they put this together. They purposely made it a district. They purposely made it something as you said, and they purposely left it out of the states for a reason. And if you start looking back, you can see what their reasoning was. So what's at stake, though, of course, is the balance of power in the Senate. Is 2 more Democratic senators. You're going to have 1 representative who will be a voter that way too. And the District of Columbia comes directly from the Constitution, as you said. Congress established the federal district in 1790 to serve as the nation's capital from land, of course, from Virginia and Maryland. That's why people say, well, why don't you give some of it, just give it back to Maryland or Virginia. The Constitution dictates that the federal district has to be under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Congress. So they have a mayor and they have a city council in D.C., but they are actually under the direct direction of the U.S. Congress.
It's so interesting. And I'm just fascinated that they think they can undo that. Now, I mean, I'll give them credit because it's obvious why they want to, as you've pointed out.
Right.
I mean, what a tremendous advantage to add another 2, obviously, Democrat senators. But I mean, I would think that they'd have a much better chance with Puerto Rico.
Well, that's what I was wondering about too, because I would think that would be the first one they would go after too, but I haven't heard anything yet about Puerto Rico, so that's interesting. Now, the 2 companion bills, there's one in the House, obviously, and then one in the Senate, and they are working together, of course, with these companion bills, and they carve out a 2-mile radius, and what they're talking about is calling it the National Capital Service Area, which would include federal buildings and other areas like the White House, the Capitol, the Supreme Court, of course, and the National Mall. And it becomes then the seat of the federal government as defined in the Constitution. That's what they want to do. And then the rest of Washington, made up of the parts of the city where people actually live, would then become the 51st state. And they are going to, they think they want to call it Douglas Commonwealth, as in Frederick Douglass. So they want to call it Douglas Commonwealth, DC. That way they can still call it DC. This would allow the new state to keep its DC abbreviation and pay homage to Frederick Douglass in that way, and the social, reformer and
Talk
abolitionist.
about mental acrobatics to try and
I know, right?
make something work.
It's a disturbing thing to me because I think that they've got legs to stand on, because what they're doing is they're saying, well, these poor people, there's enough of them there and they're not getting any representation. Well, in my mind, I'm like, you chose to live there. You knew when you moved there
Right.
that was the deal. It's not like we don't get to vote. We don't get what? So anyway, it's an interesting thing. I would like to see this go down in flames, and I would like to see some more people weigh in. And the Republicans don't have a really big argument about why they can't have it in there. Some Republicans have pushed for Washington to become a part of Virginia and Maryland, but those proposals really haven't gone anywhere so far. So I'm a little worried about this, actually, because it seems like that their argument is fairly well received.
Little factoid. I did not know until well into my adulthood, probably within the last 10 years, the Washington Redskins are not Washington State. They are Washington, D.C.
They are?
Yes.
Where do they practice? I don't even remember where they practice.
I don't know. I think that's right. Is
I
that right? Hey, producers, is that right? I mean, they're D.C., right?
Yeah,
Anyway, I
think
love them.
I know the Washington Capitals are. It was
Okay, so I don't know. Anyway, all I know is I had it backwards, and I thought I was rooting for one place, and it was another.
Okay, by the way, legislation for Washington statehood has actually been introduced forever, like for decades. They've been doing this for a long time, and it's never happened. In 1993, Bill finally made it out of committee, but it went to the House floor for a vote. It was defeated 277 to 153. Legislation was then introduced in 2020, passed the Democrat-dominated House by a vote of 232 to 180. But of course, where everything goes to die, as you say in the state of North Dakota, in the Senate, it was because we had the Prince George's County, Maryland, 5 miles east of D.C.
Wow,
okay.
somehow that's where the
Good
football
to
team
know.
is.
That's
so
great.
they're not from Washington State. So for those of you that are of the misunderstanding, like I was for the greater part of my life, there you have it.
I would like to see it not happen. I honestly know this sounds so stupid, but think of all the things that will have to change. I mean, seriously, 51 states. Wasn't it President Obama who called it 57 states at one point? Maybe that's the ultimate goal. Is they just are going to keep adding states until they get enough so that nobody can ever compete against them any longer.
I just don't think it's going to happen. I think it's fascinating, and I want to keep tabs on it. I just can't imagine that it's actually going to happen. Puerto Rico, I could believe, but this, I don't know.
Well, and I'm hopeful it doesn't. I just really think that it would be a real problem. So,
Yeah.
But anyway,
All right.
51st state could happen.
51st state, not going to happen.
Okay, when we come back, we are going to talk about President Biden's executive orders.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Beck Communications is hiring. Beck Communications is seeking qualified candidates for plant technicians in our Wheatland, North Dakota location. Beck Communications is an equal opportunity employer. To view the job details, visit www.beck.coop. To apply, email your cover letter and resume to careers@bechtel.coop. Beck Communications, making connections that matter.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Win $1,000 from the Beck News Fast Cash Contest. On Thursday, February 11th, watch Beck News programming to be entered to win $1,000. Watch Dr. Duke at 4, Ladies of Another View at 4:30, Down the Road with Joel at 5:30, No Apologies with Becker at 9, and No Filter with Debbie at 10. To enter, contact us during any show on Thursday in one of the following methods. That's it. Visit Beck.News for the full contest rules and showtimes. Beck News Fast Cash for $1,000.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck, your after-hours oasis of sanity. I'm your host, Rick Becker, co-host Lori Hintz.
Glad to be here.
And I think
indoors where it's warm.
the train is still on the tracks, barely.
I know, right?
We're at segment 3.
Okay. Well, what we've been doing on this program is we have been going on one after another after. Are we still on the 20th? Are we still on the 20th?
Fast cash.
Fast cash.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We have been, oh, there it is, woo-wee. Okay.
$1,000.
We're trying to remember to tell people about this because it's important that you know about that tomorrow. Okay,
Oh,
all right.
Lord.
All
Okay,
right.
that's it. I'm not doing any more. Tune in tomorrow night if you want $1,000. If you don't want $1,000, don't tune in. I'm not talking about it anymore.
Okay, all right. So we've been going over Biden's executive orders one by one. We are on number, 16 at this point, I think, and 16 of myriad. I don't know how many, I've lost count because it's like several dozen, probably 3 dozen or 4
Who
dozen
knows?
already at this point. The deal is with these, each one has a lot of the similar language in them than previous ones. This one's a little different. This one doesn't talk about climate change for a nice change. So it's the only one so far that I've
So
seen.
number our 16th one we're covering. We are still on the first day he took office.
That's just shocking.
This one is reinstating deferred and forced departure for Liberians. And this is, I don't know, I think it's kind of an interesting one, I guess. You gotta kind of dive deep to, I think, to fully understand it. But there's essentially just a situation with regard to Liberians where there was a lot of conflict. They had a civil war going on.
Right.
And there's sort of this status of, they're here for protection and so forth. And then what do? Well, the armed conflict ended in 2003. And
wow.
They are still in this process of
17 years ago
Right.
now, and wow, okay.
Exactly. So the idea is that they're just continuing to do this. Trump was sort of at a point where he's like, okay, we need to hash this out. Like, let's do something and get off the fence.
Right.
But President Biden has decided to get back on the fence and continue. And
Well,
they
kick
should
the
either
can down the road.
They
or
should either make them citizens or send them back to
one or
Liberia.
the other. That's right too. Well, if you find out if they are felons, if you find out about their past, but if they've been here for 13 to 17 years, it makes me wonder why are they not just resolving this? I mean, one way, like you say, just send them back or not.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like typical government.
Yeah, it does.
And so he's just going to continue it, which is, I guess, going to be.
And I think the only reason he's
modus
doing
operandi.
a good portion of these is, again, to reverse what was done by the Trump administration. So you got to look at it with a side eye every time and see, okay.
Yeah. All right, next, we've got Preserving and Fortifying Deferred Actions for Childhood Arrivals, which stands for DACA. So you guys have heard a lot about DACA, and I mean, that's been flung around quite a bit since the Obama era, where he actually started it. And what it essentially is just saying, you know what, they're going to be, these young people, we're going to treat them differently, and we are not going to enforce any of these immigration laws that we have on the books. We've talked about this with regard to some of his other executive orders, Biden's executive orders, where it's just selectively saying we're going to ignore these laws. Again, by executive action rather than by changing the laws.
Do you remember Obama and how he would always say, well, I can't really do this because I can't be a king and I can't, I can't just go make these decisions unilaterally, and then immediately he would make the decisions unilaterally.
Yeah, and he was specifically talking about DACA, saying, I can't just do this on my own. I can't, as you said, he used the phrase, I'm not a king. He said, we have to make laws. And then, poof, he did executive orders.
Did the exact
and it's
same
similar to, we talked recently about Biden saying that he can't rule by executive order. That would be
a dictator.
A dictator. And he comes in, and on his first day, boom, 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 boom. Executive orders up the wazoo.
It's funny how they just project that and then do it. It's interesting. Yeah. No. This is one of those issues in my mind where it just is enforce the law. Just enforce the law. And when you start skirting the law, you run into problems. I'm very proud to be part of the Republican Party, which is the law and order party. I mean, I really am, because if you just ignore the laws, that's what the Democrats are doing with a lot of these executive orders. They're just overriding the law of the land, essentially.
Yep. And they try and use the good terminology. We're just deferring things, and that's not it. They're just flat out ignoring the law. And again, you have the White House, you have both chambers in Congress. Change the law the way you want it.
Exactly.
And then follow the law. That we're supposed to be
it's
a
frustrating.
society based on the rule of law. Elections have consequences. I accept it. Change the law to be what you want and then enforce it.
Exactly. So the Secretary of Homeland Security issued a memorandum outlining how the Department of Homeland Security should not enforce the nation's immigration laws. Like, literally said, we know that it's the law, but let's not enforce it. It's just so goofy. Flies in the face of reason.
Yep.
So anyway, preserving, and the interesting thing is the word fortifying keeps showing up in things. Have you noticed that lately? Fortifying means shoring up. And to me, if you're fortifying something, you're making it stronger, but just the opposite, of course, as always. So, all right, so we're moving on to number 18, Executive Order number 18, which is on promoting COVID-19 safety in domestic and international travel. So science-based public health measures are critical to preventing the spread of coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19, by travelers within the United States and those who enter the country from abroad. I have one thing to say. Mexicans. People coming across the border from Mexico are not getting COVID tested. They are launching them into the United States with no COVID testing. So,
launching them?
All right,
do they
maybe
have
not launching
like
them.
a what do you call the
trebuchet? You're welcome.
Oh, trebuchet. No. Yeah, that's
Catapult.
a great one. No, trebuchet is exactly. I was thinking. I had that in my head, and I was thinking we're never going to come up with that word.
Let's not do that. Let's not launch Mexican people or people from the southern countries from Mexican border. But what I'm saying is they're not being tested. They are not even getting tested. And why wouldn't you just test people at the airport rather than saying, hey, have you been tested recently? What is recently? Recently means nothing to me. You have to be tested basically the day of, otherwise they could totally still be carrying the virus. Could they not? And be asymptomatic, supposedly.
Sure, but I have a pressing question. Monty Python's Holy Grail. You remember when they were flinging cattle and sheep at the castle? Now, were those trebuchets or were they catapults? I think they were trebuchets, weren't they?
I think they were trebuchets.
That's the one where it's like, like that.
Sorry, good. Sorry, I did not mean to co-opt that whole thing by flinging and launching people into the United States. But I do think that they should be COVID tested like everybody else. We all had to be tested. Look at how many tests we had in the state of North Dakota.
I find it interesting that that's your takeaway point from all of this.
That's my takeaway point on it. It's just unfair. I mean,
you're fine with being masked as long as those dang Mexicans have to be masked? Is that what you're saying? Oh, hey, there we go.
There we go. And
hey, there's the Knights that see. No, that wasn't them, but they're close.
Here we go. Trebuchet. Oh,
wait.
Oh,
I had it backwards. They're not flinging cattle at the castle. Their castle is flinging
out of the castle. Okay, and this is Really delightful. Welcome to No Apologies with Becker, where we go off
Yes.
the rails just like that.
There are no rails.
If that wasn't enough for you to be interested in, we're coming back with brain food tonight. Stay with us.
Howdy, folks. It's the Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Boston breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Win $1,000 from the Beck News Fast Cash Contest. On Thursday, February 11th, watch Beck News programming to be entered to win $1,000. Watch Dr. Duke at 4, Ladies of Another View at 4:30, Down the Road with Joel at 5:30, No Apologies with Becker at 9, and No Filter with Debbie at 10. To enter, contact us during any show on Thursday in one of the following methods. That's it. Visit beck.news for the full contest rules and showtimes. Beck News Fast Cash for $1,000.
Back to No Apologies on Beck. We are still alive. Thank you for sticking with us.
We like to do brain food because it's nourishment for your noggin. It is a little break from the silliness of executive orders and gun bills and things like that. And sometimes you just need to learn new stuff. And so we try not to dumb it down. We try to raise the bar a little bit on this program with brain food. So
I don't think the study results are out yet, but we believe preliminary results indicate that those who have faithfully watched the show since early December, their IQ has gone up 15 points.
Isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the 23rd Amendment to start with. And the reason we are, as we spoke about it a little bit earlier, we didn't really refer to it specifically, but in the talking about the Washington, D.C., we talked about how the fact that it was in the Constitution. So let's pull it up. This is the 23rd Amendment to the Constitution, and in it talks about the Washington, D.C. thing. That is the important thing. Section 1, the District constituting the seat of government of the United States shall appoint in such manner as the Congress may direct a number of electors of president and vice president equal to the whole number of senators and representatives in Congress to which the district would be entitled if it were a state, but in no event more than the least populous state. They shall be in addition to those appointed by the states, but they shall be considered for the purposes of the election of president and vice president to be electors appointed by a state, and they shall meet in the district and perform such duties as provided by the 12th article of the amendment. Section 2, the Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So this 23rd Amendment allows for electors in Washington, D.C. So they get to have electors, they get to have somebody who is a delegate in the House of Representatives, but they still don't get to vote in the House of Representatives. They can even speak on the floor, but it's a real interesting thing. But this is Amendment 23. And, you know, a lot of people probably don't know that, so I'm sharing it as brain food.
Very interesting. I be honest, I could not have told you what the 23rd Amendment was.
I couldn't either until I did my
right
research. Okay.
All right, so my little brain food
I'm just
segment.
guessing we're switching gears a little bit here.
As always.
Okay.
So, beer.
Excellent.
Beer here,
We're gonna learn about beer.
Rickfallum. Yeah, hey.
Yeah.
Okay, so types of beer fermentation. You have top and you got bottom.
Two different kinds of fermentation.
And I like top.
Top.
I'm a top guy.
Okay.
And
good to know.
Top is, go ahead and bring up the graphic. Top fermentation means that the yeast is floating at the top, and bottom it means it's at the bottom. Now it's very different. Originally beer is all top, and because the reason it would ferment is because of wild yeast that would come in and hit the top of the batch there.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to be warmer. It tends to ferment faster. And I think, yeah, I'm looking at the bottom. You see there, it's proven 25 points. So anyway, the top fermenting are called ales. The bottom fermenting are the lagers.
Ah, that's the difference between the two of them. They're fermented differently.
Yes.
I did not know.
And again, the temperature and the speed at which they're fermented.
Okay.
The basic domestics, which I don't like, are the lagers, the pilsners, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's some Bachs or whatever. I'm just not big on that. I call it weasel pee.
Nice.
I can't
Subtle.
say PISS because my mom said she
you
hates
can't say
that.
that on TV.
She
I
hates
like
that word.
Your mom is right.
But I love the ales. I love the ales. The ales are like everything cool is an ale.
So some of them are made
porters,
with cold, and
red
some
ales.
are made with warm
Yes.
conditions. That's really, I did not realize that either.
Yep. Warmer conditions for the top. And
now, are the yeasts just heavier, and that's why
they're different yeast? Good question, Lori.
Thank
You're
you.
asking me something that I meant to cover but didn't.
Okay.
So both of the typical beer yeasts are Saccharomyces. So myces is the word that, or the part of the word that means yeast.
Okay.
So Saccharomyces, saccharose is a type of sugar, so yeast can,
yep.
yeah.
Sweeter.
And so the Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and which reminds me of cerveza,
right?
Which I'm sure, beer. Latin-based.
Makes sense.
Yeah. That's the top producer, the top fermenting production. Saccharomyces uverum is the bottom production.
Totally different kinds of yeast.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Okay.
All right, so my next word is retrocede. And this is an interesting word for sure. It is a verb. It could be retroceded or retroceding. It means to go back. It's a transitive verb that comes from the French retroceder, from medieval Latin retrocedere, from Latin retro, and cedere, to cede, to cede back, or you retrocede a territory, for instance. In the case of, I was thinking about D.C., they would maybe give it back to Virginia or Maryland. They would retrocede. It was formed by combining the prefix retro, meaning back, or backward, with the Latin cedere, meaning to go, so to go backward. And some of the synonyms for it could be retract, withdraw, backtrack, retire, fall back, turn tall, go back, double back down, things like that. So
interesting.
All right,
Okay.
very weird word.
Next up, more beer. All right, let's see. Im Himmel gibt's kein Bier, drum trinken wir es hier.
Nice.
All right, so sour beer. I love, 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 love sour beer. Now, it's trendy. It's become extremely trendy in the last few years, which makes it somewhat less appealing to me, but I still love it very, very much.
Okay.
And these are top fermenting. We just talked about that. They tend to be wild yeast. And there are specifically, there's a type of yeast called Brettanomyces, Brett. And so if you see something, you know, and so that would indicate that it's sour. It gives it some funkiness as well. And then there's also bacteria, Lactobacillus, which
so is it like
forms
kombucha beer or?
Well, that's a stretch. That's a stretch. But there's Lactobacillus, and that makes it sour too. There are so many good sour beers. There's a lot of local craft breweries that are making wonderful sours.
Oh, they're making it here
Oh,
now,
yes, yes,
too.
yes. Bismarck Brewing has Chimera, K-H-I, Chimera, and they have different types of Chimera. I think it tends to be like a Berliner Weiss where they add some flavoring.
Excellent.
Gideon's has lots of good sours. Laughing Sun has their Red Dwarf, which you can get in cans. It's all good. Sour
You're learning about
beer.
all sorts of sour beers. That's fantastic.
Yes.
All right. Well, excellent. Good brain food today. We are going to come back with a little off the cuff where I ask a question.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
Deciding how to promote your business can be hard. Visit the professionals at Dakota Promotions and Printing and let them help you through your struggle. Dakota Promotions provides promotional items and apparel from corporate gifts to team shirts and everything in between. With quick turnaround times and friendly service, they are your best choice. And best yet, you're shopping local. Visit them online at dakotapromo.com or stop in their showroom at 320 West Main in Mandan. Dakota Promotions, delivering promotions just for you.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. As you can see, I'm very relaxed here. I'm ready.
Well, it's a good posture for you to be able to answer
questions. We're doing off the cuff. Lori and I have an agreement. I had no clues, no hints at what she's going to ask. And it turns out that I think they're interesting discussions.
And they're philosophical in nature
Yeah.
for the most part. I try to not give you facts and figures and things like that as much as you be able to just give your take on something
Sure.
from the liberty and freedom standpoint of it too. So first of all, as a setup for this one, on Saturday Night Live, which I have not watched for, well, probably 20 years now. I remember the Gilda Radner years and the John Belushi's and the Dan Aykroyd's and all that. All of the really, really good guys who were on that show. But anyway, on Saturday Night Live last Saturday, I ended up coming across this clip of the Weekend Update. And what they did is they satirized cancel culture. Which to me was really provocative and really interesting because it's so pervasive that I didn't think that Saturday Night Live would go in that vein and take on something that is just so left-leaning. So anyway, they did a sketch and they portrayed this sketch where they had two people bent on canceling something, and they did a pretty good job. You know how Rush Limbaugh says, illustrate the absurd by being absurd? Well, see what you think, right?
Yes.
Was that fantastic? Now, my favorite part of that was the studio audience's reaction. They did not know what to do in that. They're like, clap, 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 and the whole crowd is like, do we clap for that or do we not clap for that? It was just so obvious. So my question to you is, where will cancel culture stop? Is it going to stop at children? Because now they've actually called that out of there. You and I have spoken extensively on cancel culture on this program.
Yeah. Well, I think this is one of those cases where the pendulum swings. And it's swinging heavy, heavy, heavy. And if there's going to be a silver lining in Biden being in office and having control of both houses of Congress, it would probably be that it will allow the pendulum to swing back, because their Trump derangement syndrome is not going to keep pushing that pendulum ever higher.
Forever, right.
And I think with SNL, who is clearly more on the left of center,
correct,
they see the absurdity in it. And they've done this over the years, but when they have the boogeyman to go after, then that's what they do incessantly. Trump's gone now. Now they can actually start looking at some other things. Obama's not there. He was sort of like Jesus to them, so they still they weren't funny when Obama was in office. I think now that Biden's in office, there's no faux Jesus, and there's no bad guy, orange man bad.
I was just shocked by the whole thing. So, I was just so amazed that they even went there, because that's the type of thing that you would think is probably next.
Yeah.
I mean, that is not.
I think it's going to be almost like a trend, where it has been a trend. You jump on because, oh yeah, cancel, that's bad. Political correctness, and it just keeps going. And enough people start to say, screw that. No, and then other people will be like, oh, I don't want that. Mm-hmm. We see the trend now becomes tiresome. People aren't afraid to speak out against it. People aren't afraid to shut that kind of nonsense down, not in the sense of canceling, but in the sense of not being afraid to stand up against it.
I just thought it was fantastic. Thank you for your take on that one, too. Now, my next topic, too, it's similar, I guess. It's one of those culture war type things, too. And my husband has said this a couple of times recently. We've been watching television commercials, and we've been paying close attention to the messages subliminally that they are leading us toward. And over the years, we've noticed, both my husband and me, with sitcoms and programs on television, that men tend to be emasculated, and the women continually is the strong one, and the man is befuddled and goofy and just doesn't have a brain, and the woman is the one who has to rescue the situation, that sort of thing. Yep. Well, I'm wondering if it's actually true. I looked at a couple of studies that said it is possible that American men are even less masculine than they were in the past.
Oh yeah, I think that's true.
And is it culturally appropriating, or is it actually physically happening because of testosterone levels or things like that? Now, I mean, Candace Owens posed the question in a recent podcast, and that's what made me think of it too. And it really made me think, are manly men even a thing of the past, or?
Well, it's an interesting question. I would not suggest that there is a physical difference, but we can hypothesize and ask the question, is there a difference? For instance, I know that some people have said that men are less masculine and girls are maturing earlier. And why is that? Is it, hormones in milk primarily is what they were going at. I suppose that could be, but I think that there is this weird thing going on of more of a cultural thing. You can't, as a guy, you can't say anything or you get shut down. As a child, a little boy more commonly is bouncing off the walls, and they're not allowed to explore and be little boys. So from early age all the way through, it's not nature necessarily, it's nurture, and it's constantly putting them in a box where they are not allowed to be masculine.
Wow. Good answers. Good answers. Thank you. All right. Fast Cash tomorrow. Do not miss the program tomorrow. Join us for all sorts of great new things, and make sure you enter this to win.
Next up is No Filter with Debbie. We'll see you next time.